Hi, welcome. I hope everybody is having a great day today. I am Kathleen Black, and we are here for our session 2 in our high performance business system series. And today we are talking about standardizing our business for efficiency. So we're going to jump right in. First, I'm going to offer you all an extra resource. We've just released a new series called the Raft Builder series, which is going to give you more of a leadership edge. And so if you're looking for how to lean in the way that the strongest leaders would when it comes to shifting areas of their lives or looking for opportunities, you're saying, hey, how would they look at a situation like this? Then I highly recommend that you jump over to YouTube and you can follow us, follow our YouTube channel, and you can get the existing Raft Builder videos that are up, and then more are going to be released. So for some of you, by the time you watch this, the rest might be there. And they're short snippet videos. You can watch one a day or one a week, and kind of invest in your leadership aspect, the mindset of where you're at in your business. And if you need any support from us, you can use this QR code to get our YouTube link to follow directly, or Instagram, LinkedIn. And we share tons of content on all of our different platforms. So if you don't follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn, YouTube, please do, because we do share different content and then emails as well that go out. So we love to hear from you guys. And if you have any questions or need support and coaching, you'll find the link in that QR code as well. So last week, when we started this series live, we talked about hiring for success. So this next step is the natural progression, because now that we've looked to bring somebody into our business, what are we going to do to make sure they're efficient? The idea that we just hire somebody and they're going to increase or improve the bottom line of our business is quite naive, unfortunately. The majority of the time when people in real estate, and we've supported people doing this thousands of times, so, you know, business leaders in real estate, solopreneurs or top producers, look to hire an admin, a really high percentage of the time, it actually doesn't work out. And we know how this goes, right? We talk about, you know, we can do it better, or it took too long, or they were the wrong fit. But end of the day, if we don't have the systems or the approach, we'll never really know, you know, was it them or was it us? And most of us are going to get busy again, and you're going to need to go back to that hiring step. And so it's something we want to get strong at. And in order to get better at hiring, we need to document how we do things, or we need to support the person we've hired to document for us. And we'll talk about some of those hacks today as well. Next week, our final live in this mini series will be focused on maximizing your database. So how do you set up the database? What things do you want to look for? You know, if a client's working with us and they're talking about a database shift, what would be the minimum need requirement for a solopreneur versus a teampreneur or somebody expanding? Okay, so we'll talk about all of that next week. So at this point, I want you just to take a minute to think about, where are you looking to shift with the information you're getting today? So where would a documented system or process help you? So at the time of recording this weekend, super silly. I was at the cottage for the long weekend with some friends. And at the end, one of them at the back of the boat pushed me off. No big deal. I've been pushed off boats many, many times. My kids have pushed me. I pushed them. We're on a swimming platform. It's nothing crazy, but my knee was in one direction and the push went in another direction. Some of you know that I love to hike. I love to go on journeys. I love to climb mountains. And it's really unfortunate that when I was going to have my biggest knee injury, I wasn't doing anything crazy or fun, but I'm really thankful that I also wasn't, you know, on the top of a mountain without any resources and stuck there with a knee that I can't walk on or put any pressure on right now. Why do I bring this up? Because I wouldn't be able to go out there and be out of my business for 4 to 6 weeks every single year at once if I didn't have documented processes. I wouldn't be able right now to run my business really smoothly, even though I can't walk without crutches, if I didn't have documented processes. And I can't tell you the number of times that we've had an agent become ill and there's no way anyone can help them because they're not recording what's going on. Nobody knows how they do what they do. Or they have a team support person become ill or give notice last minute or give no notice, and they're stuck trying to figure things out. So I talked about in the first webinar of this series, we don't want to look at it like we're the star actor or actress in a stage show, right? If our business was the Phantom of the Opera, we don't want to be the Phantom and we don't want to be Christine. We want to be the people who are running the full production or who own the theater show and are bringing in these productions and bringing in the people who are going to direct them and manage and train and look at costumes and all that stuff. We want to be the ones who are able to bring new people in and ensure that the experience for those who are paying a lot of money, in my opinion, sometimes to go to the theater are having it uninterrupted, that what's going on behind the scenes is not impacting their front of stage experience. This is what we're looking to do. And I am sure every single one of us listening to this right now have been in a situation where they're like, thank goodness I documented that. Thank goodness I actually had a listing presentation when I went to that opportunity, right? So we want to make sure that we have notes so that when something happens, our business isn't going to, go in the gutter. We're going to be able to continue on seamlessly. And this happens so often. So I want you to think about what area of your business has been problematic because there's too much chaos. There's not enough consistency. It's not predictable. We're missing little steps, right? The office is calling, we've missed something. Clients are calling and complaining, we've missed something. They're frustrated. It's really important to think about the areas in your business that you have too much friction right now, because that's where documenting processes are going to help you in a couple of ways. One, it's going to help you have a cookie crumb trail, right, for what you're doing if you're not there. But two, by taking the time to document processes, you're going to notice gaps. You're going to notice, oh, wait, we're missing that step. Oh, wait, we're not doing something here. No wonder we keep having issues because we forget to tell the seller when we've activated their listing. And they're like, what do you mean I have showings already? Right. And it could be any little thing. Or, hey, we're always forgetting that, we add a listing manually to a different website and we always forget to update it, right? We need to make sure that we have things documented and organized so that we can be consistent. So think about an area of your business that you have friction, that you would like to improve your client service or improve your client experience or your experience in your business. That's probably an area that we need to move from vague to precise. And the best way to do that is to document and look step by step how you're doing business. Okay. Now, the other thing that I'm going to say is, again, you get good and bad working with me. There's good and bad. Good, because I've supported literally thousands and thousands of people in expanding their businesses, and hundreds, like it might even be thousands, but hundreds of top 1% producers expanding and scaling. So some aspects of scaling are very predictable, and I can certainly emphasize the mistakes you want to avoid. Good or bad is that I'm also a business owner. I've also scaled a coaching company. I don't coach one-on-one in my business. I know what it is to scale a business and look at the value of the business, the saleability of it, the residual income, the client experience, to constantly be wanting to improve all those things, and to also know there's only so many hours in the day. So you're going to hear from me when I'm going to say, listen, if you have somebody in this position, this is what you want them to do. Like today, I'm going to take you through the ideal. This is what we want, somebody to do. If we brought on team support or operations, we need these things in place. I'm also going to emphasize, hey, if you're running and you're in those pinch months where you're doing many different roles and you are like, how am I possibly going to do this? We are going to, instead of getting in that resistance and letting things feel heavy, I want you to use a concept that I use in leadership, and I use it to support our community too. A simple question: how am I so easily? So if it was mine, how am I so easily going to find a new administrator? How am I so easily training them and ensuring everything's documented? Let your brain look for resources, and I'm going to give you some of the hacks that I've come up with to make this a bit easier on us as business owners, because we're not perfect. Nobody's perfect. Sometimes we have to get things done and keep improving it as we go. If you have a team support person in place or you're trying to do that, again, this is the book that's going to take you through that journey. It's literally written to help you move from solopreneur to business owner mindset, to bring on an admin, to set your business up to scale profitably, productively, and efficiently. That's why I wrote this book, to really walk with you, those of you who are in that journey right now, and protect you so that you have a team later that does what you want it to do. Okay. So that's available if you want to grab a copy of that. All right. So we go from solopreneur and we want to go to teampreneur, but we talked about last week that there's a really important step that we miss all the time, and that is the expansion phase. And this is why you see team growth as a make or break. You'll see teams that have a lot of thunder and like, wow, look, they're doing really well. They get up to 100 deals, 150 deals. And you're like, oh, look, they're just going to keep growing and growing. And then they stall out. We see most teams stall out at the 100, 150, or 200 mark. After 200, you're in a completely different playing field. And typically to get to 300, 400, or 500 deals per year, you have laid a solid foundation when it comes to the expansion phase of your business, or you've been working on it. You've added to it. It's not by accident. Those in teams who, again, are like, well, all we have to do is focus on client experience, make client experience better and better, and our business will keep growing. It's one of the most costly mistakes we can make as business leaders. It's not true. You will build a strong business. You can build a 100 deal, 150 deal a year team just on client experience and working your database. You're going to cap out at getting too much further than that without having the right systems and steps. You're also going to see your client experience diminishing, right? It's going to go down. So last week we talked about using the Genius method, which is in the book, The Top 1% Life. It's available to all of you, to recognize what to leverage next and why, and how we're going to turn it from a cost into an investment. We're going to leverage to make more money. We're going to leverage to make more time, and we're going to leverage to improve our client experience. Really important. The next thing is that last webinar, webinar 1, we talked about a step-by-step hiring system. So you can go back, you have that recording, you have that step-by-step system to sift and sort somebody who's more likely to be able to help your business, help you. They're the right person to win in that role. We talked a little bit about a support system playbook and a training playbook. We're going to dive into that a little bit more today, not as much the training playbook, but much more so the support system playbook. What are we doing and why? That's our SOP. And then finally, last week, I encouraged you, have a plan for what leverage looks like for you. I don't believe in balance. I've never met anyone who has ever had it. And I'm relieved that more entrepreneurs are kind of like putting a pin in that balloon, because it just doesn't exist. But you can have a beautiful harmony, right? So speaking business owner to business owner, when I built my business several years ago, not last year, not 2 years ago, several years ago, I knew I need to be able to have off seasons where I'm not in the business, where I'm getting back in alignment, where my health and my energy and everything is getting strong and powerful, and I can be in a creative space, usually out hiking, whatever. I built my business to make sure that I could have that time. So I didn't build my business to say, hey, when I'm out on a mountain for 4 to 6 weeks in August or July or September, I'm going to be making personally infinitely more money because I'm doing things in the business. That's not the way I built it, right? So you want to get really clear, if you're an agent and you're bringing on an administrator and you're going to free up, some of you 20 hours a week. That's a lot of time. Some of you 15 hours a week by having somebody full-time or part-time in that role. If you decided to work all those 15 or 20 hours face-to-face with clients, if you decided to invest in your mastery of communication and conversion and providing value to potential clients, you could double your business by bringing on that person. If you chose to bring that person on, and you took that 15 or 20 hours or 10 hours a week for yourself, then investing in that administrator still isn't necessarily a cost, it's an investment, but you want to know, hey, I'm going to make a little bit less money, probably because I'm buying some of my time back, but it's not enough that it's a cost, it's still an investment for me. Okay, so that's where we're at this first scorecard of the most essential things that we need to have in order to scale a business in a powerful way. Okay, so Operations manuals, everybody's absolute fave. So we're going to talk about some hacks to make them easier, and then we're going to go through the full thing. What you want to have in them, why you want to have it. There's so many different tech platforms that you can use when it comes to operations manuals. Some people use Google Forms, and everything that they do as an accessory description is a link right in the form. So everything's connected. So every time you do an update, it's automatically saved. Other people use specific platforms just for their SOPs, standard operating procedures, or operations manuals. I highly encourage you have a place for video. You really want this, and that you don't make the mistake of doing hour-long videos. You want to do small videos. Why? Because things change. You're going to have updates. You're going to need to redo a 5-minute video, and you're going to be so relieved that it wasn't, a piece in the middle of your 1-hour training video, right? So there are certain things that we want to chunk down so people can easily search for answers to questions. It's kind of like having a frequently asked questions section on your website. Really, really important for certain types of business, right? For your internal business, you want to have that. You don't want people calling you all day long going, how do I do this? How do I do this? We want to help people be autonomous, right? We want to have entrepreneurial leadership style where we're supporting people in being in their area of genius, knowing what winning in that role looks like, and then letting them go and being accountable for it. Really important. So you don't want to train people to be constantly asking you every little question. You want to do a new video, put it into your Drive or your Vault or whatever you're choosing to use, or Loom. You could use Loom to share a screen, whatever. And then they're able, now your answer is, hey, did you search the frequently asked? Did you search the SOP before you asked me? So that you're not constantly doing, the same climb again and again. Okay. So SOP is adopting a standard operating procedure manual. Number one, we're going to talk about obviously creating an outline. What needs to go in there? What does it look like? There's so many different ways to do this. And I find sometimes business owners panic, right? They're kind of like, oh my gosh, we don't have, our mission, vision, values yet. And it's like, well, yeah, because you were a team of 2 and we were busy just hiring and training. You're going to know when you need it. When you get to be the point of a medium team or a large team, mission, vision, values, they're just vital. They're your North Star. But when you're first growing, they're going to change. So I don't want you to see anything in here and kind of panic and be like, oh my gosh, we don't have something we need. The goal is just Kaizen, right? Constant, consistent improvement will always outpace people who do broad mass swoops with innovation. Constant, consistent improvement. That's Kaizen, mastering the science of what we do and the art. Okay. So we're going to talk about an outline. What needs to be in there? What's our table of contents? 2, we want to talk about involving the team. You don't necessarily need to do this yourself. In fact, you might not be the right person to create a standard operating procedure. I might not be the right person to do that. And we're going to talk about who is the right person and how to include your team. And finally, you want to make sure you're setting standards and expectations, which is so important, right? Sometimes I've seen teams, people leave teams over a silly little thing like confusion in what was expected of them. They talk to another team and they're like, well, that team, they don't have to do admin, or they don't have to do open houses, or, they don't pay expenses. And it's just this little confusion that if we had been clear from the start, what we do, what we don't do, what an agent does, administrator, or marketing coordinator does, and what they don't do, right? So we want to make sure this helps us to all be on the same page. And that's one of the great things about standard operating procedures. So what is it? It's a step-by-step set of instructions compiled by an organization to help workers, team members carry out complex, routine operations. And it might not seem complex, everything in real estate, but when you think about how many moving pieces and you start to multiply it as your business grows, the more team members, the more clients, the more service providers, the more complex it's going to be, and which means the easier for something to go wrong, right? Which we want to avoid. Standard operating procedures aim to achieve efficiency, quality output, quality service, right, to our clients, and uniformity of performance. So we want consistency here while reducing miscommunication and failure to comply with industry regulations, let alone with your minimum standards. I mean, I think if we're setting the bar really low here, if we're saying, you know what, I really want to make sure that my team members are not intentionally going against rules and regulations of our industry, I'd say let's raise the minimum standard a little bit. You know, there are certain things that we all do in businesses that represent each other. You know, I represent every one of our coaches right now. I represent our clients. I represent, you know, my kids, list goes on. And I have a responsibility to that. And that's okay. That's a positive level of accountability, right? That SOPs can help us with, which we'll talk about. We'll talk about our North Stars, as I like to call them. The strength and power of a team is defined by the ability of each of its members to know, understand, and embody the core values and key strategies of the business or team. How do we ensure that each and every member, whether that's a salesperson, a field agent, an inside sales agent, that's what ISA means, an administrator, a marketing coordinator, a team leader, or anyone else understand all of this information that allows us to have what they call a well-oiled machine, which is hard. It's really hard to have a scaling business, improve client experience, have people want to work with you, right? And be all on the same page and have the same values. It's worth it, but it's not easy. So we need resources like this to make it easier for us, because without documenting a lot of these things, it's not just hard, it's impossible. And we don't want to go into that zone. So we put it into a standard operating procedure, fancy name for operations manual, and share it with everyone on the team so we can be more aligned. What does a written SOP give you? Why take the time to do this? Because over the years, I've had some clients who honestly would be like, Kathleen, I'd rather have you pull out my teeth than make an SOP. And I'm like, you need this. And there are some portions of an SOP that largely our technology helps us with, right? Next time, we're going to talk about creating a high performance CRM. Not just having a CRM. Lots of people have CRMs. They use them, they don't use them. But a really small percentage of people actually utilize their database in high performance. And let me tell you, that is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful feeling. And I want all of you to have it, because the pace you can move at compared to an average producer, an average agent, like it's night and day. It's so beautiful. So part of building out our CRMs and our database actually helps us have SOPs in some regards, because we actually document all the steps with a buyer or a seller or an investor, because we have what I'm going to call next week trigger points that activate the next phase in the business for the client. And building that out in your CRM, it's not a documented SOP like a manual, but it still is standard operating procedures. You're just putting them right into our workflows, which is a beautiful thing. So some of you might start with your CRM before you even do an SOP, but hopefully you do a little bit of both, okay? So what does it give you? It gives you efficiencies and therefore increased profitability. It gives you consistency and reliability in routine tasks and service quality. It gives you fewer errors in all areas, a way to resolve conflict between partners on the team, other people you work with, a healthy and safe environment. So important for us as leaders, right? We want to nurture healthy places that people want to work in. Protection of team leader and members in the areas of potential liability and personnel matters, a roadmap for how to resolve issues, and the removal of emotion when we're troubleshooting. Most team leaders, 90%, maybe even more, when I ask them what's the hardest part of the business, like people management. So let's have, some terms of engagement right off the bat when people are coming onto the team, because it's so much easier to get people thinking and acting in a certain way when they're new to that environment. It's extremely difficult when we change it later, right? And allowing needed focus on solving the problem. If we do hit any issues, we want to be solution-based, not complaint and problem-based. We want to make things better. And proper onboarding and training processes, as well as value added to your business, should you ever wish to sell it. Not having SOPs and documented processes will hands down impact residual income, profitability, the saleability of your business, your options for, retirement or selling your book, depending on the structure. So we definitely want to make sure all those things are in place. And there's something else I want to add. I mean, a roadmap for how to resolve issues and the removal of emotions and troubleshooting, being solution focused. It's so important that as you build your business, I always say, I'll solve a problem once, right? And I'll never be mad about it. I'm like, hey, my rule of thumb is if we have new problems in the business, we're growing, right? If we have the same problems or old problems, I'm concerned, I'm worried. I'm like, wait a minute, we've already done something to solve this. Like the break, we tried to like patch the canoe, water's getting in again, we got to go back, right? So really important, point being, as we build the business, there are going to be new things. Like even, like again, we've helped thousands of people build this. There's still new things, like the industry's changing. Social media changed things. All of a sudden now we have team members posting something, a team leader's horrified, right? We're going to go back to our SOP. Like what's reasonable, what's expected? How can we keep each other protected when we're working together in this business? So please understand that an SOP needs to be a living document. And those of you who do goal setting well, you know what I mean. Like it's not something you just put on the shelf and you leave it there. It's something you're updating regularly. You're actually using it, which is why I love taking portions of SOP that make sense for clients and actually building them in our CRMs, our databases, and our task project management systems, which could be like Asana or Trello or Monday. There's new ones all the time, but it actually makes it a living document that we have to use, that we're accountable to those steps, right? So there's a lot that we can do with this, which is great. So who should create the SOP? Somebody who is detail-oriented, hands-on with the majority of tasks, somebody who's systematic, a strategic thinker, somebody who's tech savvy. I mean, I always think that's a hard one. I think I'm not tech savvy at all. And then I'll meet people who are like, what do you mean you're good? I'm like, yeah, I get by. You know what I mean? So somebody who knows how to use the platforms is important. And the keeper of the files. So the person who's going to make sure that they know where this is, everything's organized. For using Google Drive, we have a system for how we use folders and the dates we use and where everything's at. Organization is very important with the team, because the way you file something is not necessarily the way somebody else files something. So think about it like the library. We need a process even for how we organize things within a team, including our SOP. So ideally, that's the person that we want to have help us with creating this. So a lot of people who don't have SOP in place, you're probably going to put this in place as you're hiring. So hopefully some of you were with us last week. You're like, okay, we're preparing to hire, or I have just hired. Now what do I do? You want to use some of your training to help you create this document for the first time. So this is one of those hacks. And I use this hack every time we hire somebody new into the business that we haven't had that role before. Okay, so if we were hiring somebody as a basic administrator and we never had that role in my business before, at that point, I would have already created the job description, right? We talked about that last time. So you've customized the job description. You're going to use that to come up with two things. One, daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly tasks. And two, a training document. So based on their job description and based on daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annual, fine, but like, let's chunk down a little bit here. What do they need to be trained on? And you want to have a full checklist of everything, because some things you'll take off, some things you'll forget and add, all that great stuff. So we should have a bridge to build back here to create our training document. Everything that we do in the past should help us in the future if we do it right, right? These things should all build on each other. It's kind of like dominoes. So the hack is that you want to incorporate training into creating this document. So I call it the feedback loop. Most of us are familiar maybe with Stephen Covey. He talks a lot about this. A client says something to you and you say, oh, thanks so much. So what I think I hear you saying is, and then you say back to them what you think you heard. Is that right? Did I hear it right? And you give them a chance to come back and say, oh yeah, except for no, Kathleen, we really didn't like that house because it had hardwood, but we hate espresso hardwood. Oh, cool. Sorry. I thought you were saying you liked it. whatever, right? It takes out the likelihood for miscommunication at the high levels that we have, every day in life and business. So what is the loop? You go through the training tasks. You're going to set aside, training time just with this person, and you're going to train based on each segment of the job description. You don't want to go crazy with training somebody on new things all day long, right? The general rule of thumb is about an hour and a half to 2 hours for somebody to be in active learning mode. So we want to take them through how you do things, right? Have them write notes, have them document links. They can be doing this on their laptop or on their computer. You're taking them through it. And then you're going to give them a chance to then type up those notes, organize those notes, practice doing those tasks. So day one, you're going to have whatever it is, 5 tasks, 10 tasks, it depends, your most crucial things that you need this person doing. And you're going to train them step by step on exactly how to do it. They are then going to practice doing this. They're going to type it up. They're going to come back the next day and say, okay, great. So based on our training yesterday, when we went over these 10 things, this is what I put in place for the SOP. Here's what I think I heard you say. Can you please go over it? Now you're going to go over it, and guaranteed you're going to find things missing. You're going to find miscommunications. You're going to say, oh, shoot, we need to add that. Didn't I have that in there? And you're going to tighten this up. Then you're going to go on to your next stage of training, and you're going to keep doing it, because we want this person doing those things from day one enough to where they actually can, be a producer or perform within the business. So we're just going to keep repeating this day after day until you've gone through all of the things, noted on their training list. You've noticed here, I've also said include videos for anything that's extra over and above. Onboarding should be your critical, most important tasks that person needs to be able to perform at an extremely high level in order to be have all the odds stacked for them to be a high performer in this role. That's what onboarding is. Onboarding's like the basic 101. It's like the encyclopedia of their role, okay? After that comes the objections and the firefighting and the interference and the difficult client, right? All that stuff. So we need to get the onboarding down, because it should be 95% of what's most critical in their role. It should be. And after that, it's going to be the nuances. And this doesn't change if you're onboarding a marketing implementer, a marketing coordinator, if you're bringing on an admin, if you're bringing on a sales agent. Onboarding should be the most critical things that they need to do at the highest level in order to excel, to perform well. And there should be testing involved there. So for an administrative role, the testing is coming back. They've documented it. We see it's right. And then we're going to see that they're going to be able to perform these tasks. Okay. So this is the hack. As a business owner, if you're like, I don't have the time to write all of this out, well, you're hiring somebody on team support who has the right personality, if you used a hiring system, to be able to support, to document. Likely they're more detail oriented than you. Not always, but likely. They're probably the better person to prepare this document for you. And that's going to give you more leverage. Okay. Those involved in our coaching program, we support this and we help with this step by step. Okay. So that's your hack. I wanted to share some examples, because recently, every year, in fact, we release our winners, our MVPs, and we're so proud of them. Solopreneurs, those in the expansion phase, or our team clients, teampreneurs, which we call them industry icons. And Gary Hibbert had shared some feedback, talking about, hey, until I came out and I was involved in Summit, I was involved in coaching, I didn't even know what an inside sales agent was. I didn't know how valuable this would be to our business. And I bring this up because if you're building standard operating procedures, part of it we're going to talk about is understanding where your business is at now and where you want it to go. You don't necessarily know what it looks like to get there, right? Or the path for how to get there. That's why we go to mentorship and we go to leadership. So it's really important that we start documenting these pieces, because when we do, we realize, oh, wait, I know where I'm at now. I have clarity. I know these rules. I know what we're doing, but I don't know how to bridge the gap to get to that next space. So Gary was one of our award winners last couple of years, and he was able to really look at, through strategizing and documenting and improving his business, shifts he had to make given the market shifts in the last couple of years. And having an SOP makes it easier to make those changes. So some agents and teams over since COVID, and then now with market shifts and economics and interest rates and all that stuff, we've been like, how do they pivot? Popular word, how do they pivot so easily? Well, because they already know what they're doing. They're only pivoting like nuances of their business, because when you have more structure and you're more solid in other areas, it's easier to change over slight pieces of something that you're already 95% strong at, right? Versus just, constantly recreating the wheel. So what goes into the SOP? Number one, checklists, examples of your checklists, your master templates for that role, your login codes and passwords, schedules that are applicable, right, per role, job descriptions and how-to steps, scripts, depending how you set this up. Okay. Typically, we're going to talk about the sections of an SOP that are for everybody in your business. And then there are sections that are just per role. Personally, I separate it. Our onboarding, everybody in the company has a certain part, but the onboarding for a salesperson or an ISA or a coach, right? Like we've separated this when we're supporting our clients and in my business as well, because it's a very specific journey, depending what role they're at. When you're first building, you might do this all as one massive document, and that's totally okay too. You might want to make sure if you create a big, massive document, overwhelm is the enemy of performance. Okay. Overwhelm is the enemy of performance. You don't need somebody who's coming into your business to support team support, and they're only doing this list of tasks to read a 100-page document on what everybody in the business is doing. Now, with team support, maybe you do, but often, for example, if you have a bigger team, we don't need a sales agent reading an SOP for a team leader, a marketing coordinator, administrator. That doesn't make sense. Remember, carve through to the most important things that they are doing in their role, that if they did it at a 95% capability, they would be high performers. We're just tilting the odds, right? And take out all the other stuff that isn't in line with that. We want to be in alignment. We don't want all this interference and overwhelm and extra information that's not going to help this person perform in their particular role. So I would really resist that approach. Important contact information and organizational chart. So where do I start? This is the part that would be for everybody in your team or your business or your brokerage, right? Whatever it is. So number one, a list of all our tech, right? What tech are we using? What apps? Which email provider? What does your schedule need to be on Gmail? Is it then going, or Google Calendar? Is it then going to be shared within a CRM system, right? What does that look like? So we need a list of all of the tech that we actively use per role and what needs to be implemented. Second, we want to have an organizational chart. And if you don't have one, they're pretty easy to build, right? You can use PowerPoint, you can use, there's apps. I was on one yesterday, I forget the name, but that are just for conceptual, like organizational diagrams or process-driven visuals, which is what an org chart is. For our clientele, we call it the stages of team expansion. And we have documents. So when a client starts with us, it's like, okay, you're at team step 2, right? Team growth step 2, and you want to get to 5. So here's the pieces we need to put in place to get you there. But minimum, just create an organizational chart of where you're at now. And I recommend that you add the next step where you'd like to be after that. To have a visual is really helpful. Third, we want to have what I call our North Star. North Star is super important in business. It can get lonely. It can be hard. You can feel like people don't have your back that you think should. All sorts of things happen in business. It can also be amazing when people have your back during your hardest times, right? Like teams are amazing hubs for life. They really are, to help us do life better in this industry. So your North Star documents should really make it easier for people to understand what is the underlying beliefs in your culture, right? Because culture is about belief. Your culture is what people believe. So if people believe, that majority of your clients are not going to act right now, they can't be pre-approved for something, That's part of your culture because that's what you believe. North Star is about cutting through to get us back to our most important beliefs. So your vision, where the business is trying to go together, right? So together, we're trying to go there in the future. That's our vision. Your mission statement is what we're committing to do right now, day to day. It's what we're already doing. It's how we do business and why. Your team values are the path you're going to take, right? So some people are client focused. Some people are team agent focused as who they're going to support more. Some people, it's very important to be a consultant's approach. Like in our organization, that's very, very important to us. Team values could be community contribution or philanthropy, right? Volunteering. There's so much that can go into that. Team guiding principles, I really love, because that is examples of how we make decisions. So it's saying, hey, if you're in a pinch and you've got to make a call, this is what we believe in. So as long as you make a decision in alignment with that, we're all going to be good. On the flip side of that, if something in our team guiding principles doesn't sit well with you, this might not be the right fit. So let's talk about it up front, because these are things that we all commit to. They make us who we are, right? Example of table of contents. Okay, so we're going to go in high level with everything that you want to ideally have in your SOP. So some of you are going to note maybe one or two things you don't have in there, and you're going to decide, is it a priority to add them? I'm not here to give you a make work project. I don't believe in that. I believe in highest use and priorities to help us and our people live better, do better, right? Serve better. So, and again, don't go into overwhelm. That's my ask of you. So number one, we're going to have a title page, our team name or a business name or organization. We get the drift. The date we created this, the edit number or date we updated it, who prepared it, if applicable, right? Second, we're going to have a formal table of contents. Third, we're going to have specifics about using the SOP. Who's using it? Why are we using it? And what impact do we want it to have? Fourth, team vision, mission, values, guiding principles. The fifth thing we want to have in there is office protocol. Hours of operation, right? If you have an office space, you want to outline this, because people coming in, it can be really confusing with remote work even more sometimes. The equipment available and usage, how it works with printers or deliveries and costs, all that kind of stuff. How we deal with absenteeism, sick leave, vacation, substitution, like bringing somebody else in, insurance, communication protocol, pay protocol, contractor protocol, contractor versus employee. These are really great things to have in your SOP. I'm also going to give a tip that seems like I sometimes find my most important advice seems a little bit silly sometimes, which is funny to me. Maybe it's a mom thing, but really important advice. Make it part of your onboarding, your checklist, that they have to read the portions of your SOP that are for your whole business and organization, and then the portion for them. I'm never going to say have them read all of it. I don't think they should, unless they're a director of operations or something like that, team leader. Yeah, you should probably read it. But everybody else, no, but have them read it. I'll never forget when I was younger, I used to work at the burger place at Yonge and Eglinton Licks. Those of you from Toronto will know the company. Only time in my life I wasn't promoted. I got demoted because I didn't want to sing out the orders, right? If you guys remember, it was like Motown, great. I love the music, but singing, I was like, I'm tone deaf. I took my first singing lesson last week trying to overcome this. Anyways, I get demoted down to table person, and I'm like the best table person you've ever seen. I'm clearing the trays, all this stuff at Licks. I'm like, if I'm going to be a table person, I'm going to be the best. I'm going to talk to these people, make sure they feel good, even though I'm an introvert. Great. Long story short, we come and the manager starts saying, oh, Kathleen, like, did you sanitize this? Did you do this? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I've cleared all the stuff. I've swept, I've mopped, I've done everything. Like, what do you, like, I don't even know what you're referring to. And he's like, didn't you read the manual when you started? Like, everything's in there. You're supposed to be doing all this stuff every single shift. I'm like, I didn't even know the manual existed. Right. So and it sounds like, yeah, you're a teenager, but no, this is how it goes, right? We come into a new team, we come into an organization. It's so quick. into the training. This is what you need to do. This is how you do it, which they did training, but never once said, here's the manual. You need to read this. Or, hey, guess what? It's not just smoke and mirrors. We actually do the things in this manual. Years later in a retail store, I remember a manager being like, read it because you're going to be an assistant manager, but we don't do any of it. It's like, okay, that's their culture, right? That's their beliefs. If you want people to take your business seriously and what you built, which I think we do because we're building together with team members, we need to make sure that we make it part of their onboarding, that they understand us and what we stand for and all of those things. So make it part of your onboarding to actually read this document. It also helps you catch things, if you need to do updates. So we also want to have an abbreviations list, which is, is there like slang, so to speak, or short forms that you use in your CRM? Like, do you use FU means follow up, not something else? You want to make sure that you put that. LM, left message, HU, hung up, right? Do you have certain little terms that you use within your database? What about in other communication within the team, right? Do you call a buyer appointment a BRA appointment, or do you call it a consult? Like, what is that everyday terminology that you all use and assume everybody knows? Because somebody who's new isn't going to. So you want to include that there and build on it. Next, organizational chart, as we talked about before, for the roles and who you report to. Another tip, personally, when I'm trying to nurture leadership, I never will tell somebody they report to somebody. I will say, hey, this is your role. This is what we expect. This is how you win. This is how you lose. This is how you make us really happy. And this is how you make us really concerned. I won't say angry, but really concerned. And end of the day, this is who we're accountable to. Marketing is accountable to the whole team, but they're accountable for what they've got done to operations, right? You want to watch the language. So a lot of people would use report to, but if you're a very collaborative business and you want autonomy and people who are going to get work done on their own and not just jump when you ask them to jump, then I'd be really careful with your language because it's a big part of your culture, okay? And finally, you want to document your client journey, ideally with a flow chart. Now, if you ask me what percentage of my clients have a documented client journey with a flow chart in their SOP, I'd probably say it's less than 1. However, have they documented their client journey? Yes. Have they set up plans in their CRM? Do they have tasks connected with each one of those plans? Yes, 100%. So if you don't have it in your SOP, let's have it set up in your database, which means you're going to need to document it, but it won't be in here because it's going to change and have little tweaks all the time. I'd rather see you honestly have it in your database where you're using it consistently. Okay, sections of the SOP per role. I'm not going to read out every little thing because we're already 47 minutes in and I want to get through this. Okay, so I'm going to take you through some examples of sections. So first, administrative team section. Number 1, I will highlight training document. Again, you don't want to create how to hire, what they should do, and how to train them at once. Training is a mastery of its own, right? Like it's a niche. So you want to make sure that you have support with how you're going to train people or an approach. And over time, you should have a document of here's day 1, here's day 2, here's what you need to have learned, like make it very precise. Job descriptions. Typically with admin, we're looking at a contract coordinator, a listing coordinator, a direct administrator, a marketing implementer, coordinator, or marketing manager, very different roles, like a creative would be more the manager. And finally, potentially a client care, licensed or unlicensed, depending on your job description. That's typically what we're looking at for like base roles of team support. We've already talked about logins, contact list, all your team members, preferred partners, who do we recommend for landscaping, web design, all that stuff. They should have all that at their touch of their drop of a dime, touch of their fingers, right? All after hours team resources and contacts if something goes wrong, and all after hours as well, plumbers, electricians, locksmiths, cleaners, something happens. The database plans or access to them in the system, and they should have access to the CRM, right? Your buyers, your sellers, your past clients, schedules, and potentially duty schedule, who's doing open houses, just knowing who's where and what's going on. Social media schedules, if they're supporting you with that. They should have all the checklists right? And maybe read through this. Maybe there's a checklist you're missing here and you want to add in. Again, try to have this in your technology that you're using day to day, a CRM, but also always have backups, particularly for, listing process. You don't want to find out that something got clicked by accident, or the power goes out, or internet goes out, and we have no backup and we need to get things done. Make sure you also have those checklists so they know they should be filling them out and what they look like at every step in the client process. The sales team section, we should have a job description. We definitely should have a contract and or agreement, if you don't want to use the word contract, and agreement for field agents, which are agents who sell, as well as inside sales agents who book appointments with leads for the field agents. We need to have both operational and sales onboarding. They are not the same thing. 99.999% of teams do a phenomenal job. Well, that's not true. Of the teams who do onboarding, 99.999 do a phenomenal job with operational onboarding, because this is like, you need a business card, right? You need an email with the team. You need the code to get into the brokerage or the team office. Like, these are the basic logistical things that we just have to have. And you want to have a checklist because some of them are easy to forget, and then it can go badly, right? So you want to have a checklist for all of that, like CRM training, or to sit down with the team manager or the administrator to get to know different people within the team. But sales onboarding is very different. Sales onboarding, again, is the equivalent of the example we talked about with an administrator. How can I take the core things that a sales agent on this team needs to be able to do at a very, very high level in order to tip the odds in their favor so drastically that they are going to be exponentially more likely to be productive? This is important. So if on your team, right, a sales agent is doing all their own marketing and all their own administration, and they're doing listing, CMA listing consultations and buyer consultations, your onboarding is going to be really wide and not as deep, right? My onboarding is going to be much more narrow, but much deeper. Okay. This is really important. And when I say depth, I'm saying that we're going to a higher level of mastery. We're going down into those nuances, and we are preparing them for the obstacles, the interference, the issues, what somebody could say to them in advance in order to get them predictably to a minimum conversion rate. And I know I'm going into real systems language right now, but this is so important, because when I bring somebody onto my team, I want them to do well. I want them to be happy. I want us to believe in something in powerful work that's bigger than money. That's really important to me. So when I bring them on, I want to give them everything we have with the minimal amount of my time personally doing it, because I'm doing other things. I'm not being mean, but I want to build a system to give them that predictable opportunity to deliver at a high level. And this is something that you can do exceptionally well with new team sales agents. If you really build out that onboarding right, it's a make or break. So not just operational onboarding, but also sales onboarding with testing. We talked about testing with team support, definitely testing with sales agents as well. How do we show properties? What happens if I show properties or do an offer for another team member and they're on vacation or they're sick, or I do that for a team leader? That should be in there or in your team agreement. Multiple offers. How do we handle disclosure? How do we handle open houses? Do we market them? Does the team member put signs out? Do we put signs out? Do we have wine and cheese, right? Like, what happens at our open houses? Prospecting protocol. I recommend that's in your contract with team members, but you can definitely have it in your SOP as well. Marketing, social media guidelines to keep you guys consistent as a team and your members. Trackers. What do trackers look like? Which ones do we fill out? When are they due? Who do I hand them into? What do they mean? What do you want them for? Is it because you're judging me and I'm failing? Or is it because you're trying to help me reach my goals? What does this look like, right? Sales team section, sample of all your forms, listing agreements, buyer agreements that are filled out, examples that you want new team members to go by. How do you structure your offer, right? Do you do all your most important conditions at the top of your schedule? Do you have a certain way that you order it? I personally do. And I feel like I want to make sure that when there's an agent coming onto a team that we're supporting, that they're going out there and showing up professionally. Also, that other agents aren't going to eat them alive when they're like, oh my gosh, you don't even know how to structure an offer, right? They're going to manipulate them a little bit. So it's like, hey, let's talk about these core things. Amendments, who do I call in case of emergency, copy of your call scripts, or it's in your sales onboarding, duty schedules if you have them, open house schedules if you have them, and list needed processes as required, right? All your processes. Marketing implementer, we would have a section for them, how to analyze, review market tools, SWOT analysis, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, looking at your marketing and your competition in your area. Integrations and connections for internet data, right? Do we need pixels on our ads? Is it flowing into our CRM? Can we tell where our leads are coming from? Can we tell that a lead came from a digital marketing ad and then booked a buyer consultation and then it got signed and then they bought a house from us 2 years later? Do we have that data? Are we set up to have it and to have a dashboard to look at it? Schedules and content calendars, obviously important for marketing. A filing system. The more you do marketing wise, the more important it is. You have a cohesive filing system that's organized, because other people on the team need the most recent copies of things if they're utilizing them in other areas of the business. Formats, templates, postcards, newsletters, cards, event checklists, definitely community, door knocking, appreciation, anything that we're doing there. What does it look like? Vendor contact forms, reports and communications and approvals. I'm a big fan of not just telling them what to do and having it in the SOP, tell them how to win. If you have a marketing implementer or coordinator, what does a winning post look like? What does that mean to you? What does a winning ad look like? What do we want it to do, right? What's successful and what's not? It's very subjective depending on the team you're on. So you want to really include that, this as a guiding principle on how to really thrive in their role, okay? Tech and IT system or section, sorry. So if you have tech IT support or you have a mixed role, obviously email protocol, CRM protocol, checklist, phone integration system, forwarding calls, what to do when we're on vacation, all that stuff, social protocol, website protocol, MLS protocol, online lead instruction, depending where you might be getting digital marketing, all of those things would be in there. And potentially you would have a human resources section. We have human resources experts we work with personally also who come in and support our community. They're amazing. And some people have aspects of human resources in-house, right, as they grow a team. So that would include, for example, your hiring process. Even if you don't have a human resources person, you could have this section with your hiring process, recruitment, how you do onboarding, what you use for performance reviews, when do you do them? What do they look like? Is there a template for that? How do you score somebody? Is it subjective and objective? Is it a mix, right? Are we using data and contracts we use, communication protocols, meeting protocols? When do we meet? What does it look like? What's the structure? And team culture and team events specifically, like for bonding, synergy. You definitely want to have a team leader section. This one gets left out a lot. Big question always, what do I do? So I'm the team leader. What's my role? What am I supposed to be doing, right? Which is another webinar for another day. But in the team leader section, we want to have job description, your roles and responsibility, additional leadership resources that you might go to. Maybe they're a North Star for you. Tracking templates overall for the business, the different departments in the business, like dashboard, for example. Meeting agenda, meeting structure. How do you structure your meetings? When do you meet? What are you focused on? Why, right? If, for example, if you don't do onboarding as a team, you're going to have a lot of firefighting in your meetings, much more than a team who does onboarding. Because when you do onboarding, let's say your existing team's here, you bring somebody on, an admin or sales agent, you want to get them like 60-65% of the way on the core competencies of the team before they join in. So now you still got a gap, but it's not as huge, right? Versus if you don't do onboarding, people come in like compared to your team language, your team way of doing things, they're coming in on the first floor here. Like we're like a 0 or a 10. Maybe they came to an event before and you're trying to gap all the way up to like a 95. You're going to have a lot of questions, a lot of disruption. It can be really tricky. So when you do a lot of recruitment, our meeting structure might shift, right? Have more time for questions and firefighting so that we're not getting called, 24 hours a day. You want to have goal setting, business planning, and definitely budgeting and forecasting is something you should be doing annually. Again, those might be private documents. You might not put them in a overall one big SOP, but you need to have them. So this puts it on your radar. It's something you should be doing. So again, top 1% life on Audible. If you want to listen in the car, I promise you, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my gosh, like I need these systems, I need to move out of this chaos. Listen to the Audible while you're doing showings or you're driving around, not with your clients. It will really help with the belief systems, the neural pathways we have to build when we're shifting our roles in life, right? It will really, really help with that. Building these systems really help. Right now, we're celebrating our top 1% award winners. Our industry icons are going to come out. Again, we do this every single year, but people are having massive improvements in their business by putting some of these core systems in place. Like Diana Cassidy Bush did a 10% gain last year, and she restructured her whole business, her whole team. But since starting in coaching, she's done a 60% growth. A lot of that is the work on these core systems, these core pieces that just shift us a little bit higher. So I always like to celebrate our community members because we are proud of them and they are fantastic. And there's a sneak peek of some of our industry icons, team members, team leaders who are building, profitable, productive, efficient businesses, that they have options, saleability, residual income. And that's really important in life, right? This phase may not be forever for some of us. What are we going to do after? So we support solopreneurs. If you need clarity in this industry on what to do, you need your personal North Star or confidence on putting some of these things in place. Maybe you've done things a different way for a long time, or you need to build these aspects of leverage, these arms, right, in your business, or you have a whole team. And you're like, hey, the market shifted. We're here to support those three platforms for any systems or service business. And you can reach out and do a strategy call with us anytime to chat about how we can help you go from where you're at now to shift to where you want to be. It's something we absolutely love to do. And if you want to go back and follow us or subscribe to YouTube to get the Raft Builder series, you can do that right now. And on that note, I am going to say SOPs, people avoid them sometimes because they feel like it's costing them money. Like, hey, I'm out selling, I'm busy, I'm with clients, this is making me money. I've got another firm deal, dopamine hit, right? Like I feel good, I've got that momentum, I've got that energy. However, you're never going to get off of that same hamster wheel. And there's nothing wrong with that hamster wheel. I mean, I love what I do. You guys probably love what you do, but you want to have choices. So at some point, in order to have choices and be able to help more people at a higher level, to be able to take more vacation time, to have a night off without looking at your phone, this is the avenue to do that. Documenting how you do business, bring on people at the right time who are going to help you in areas that are potentially weak spots for you, and keeping your energy and passion alive, right? As entrepreneurs and leaders, it's vital. We set the tone for our whole business, and so do all of our team members. But if we're not setting the tone high enough, we're just influencing everybody else to be at a problematic state of mind. So when there's a market shift or an interest rate shift or a pandemic, it's very hard to pivot when we don't have a strong foundation under us. So if you're saying, hey, life isn't getting easier, the industry isn't getting easier, build a stronger foundation so that you can go up, you can grow despite it. And that's 100% available to everybody here. So I'm encouraging you and promising you, myself or any of the extremely successful leaders, far more successful than me, they would have never been able to scale to the extent that they have without having documented these processes. It would have been impossible. They'd still be back climbing the same mountains, dealing with the same problems, stuck in the same ruts. And that is exhausting, right? It's not going to motivate you to grow. So let's get these base pieces done or make them stronger so we can just scale out further from there.